This is the Believe in Texans podcast alongside former Houston Texans wide receiver, six-year NFL veteran Cecil III. I am Patrick Creighton, host of Area 45 on Sports Radio 610, your home for the Houston Texans. And Cecil, there's a lot of different ways to describe what we saw on Sunday from the Houston Texans, because they went to a very difficult place to play in Lambeau Field. They went to go face an excellent young quarterback in Jordan Love, a very good football team in the Green Bay Packers, and had a lot of opportunities to win this game, but their offensive line decided not to show up. The offense could not get on track, and despite forcing 3 turnovers, the Texans lost to the Packers 24-22 on a field goal as time expired. And it's a game where if you took the Texans and the points with our friends over at Bet Online, Bet Online, the world's most trusted betting platform, your number one source of everything sports betting, the Texans were getting 2.5 points. If you took the Texans, you were a winner.
You're good.
However, the Texans were not winners in actuality, and we really have to have a conversation about the offensive line. Yeah. This was their worst performance of the entire C.J. Stroud era. And this is a line last year that had Laramie Tunsil playing on one leg. They were on a backup tackle, like their 4th center and their 5th guard. And they could pass block. Now, they couldn't run block last year, but more often than not, they held their own at pass block, and they had a few games late in the season where they didn't do as well. But overall, they at least pass blocked with some sort of proficiency. Yesterday, the Texans had all 5 of their starting offensive linemen. That include one of the highest paid left tackles in the game, one of the highest paid right tackles in the game, one of the highest paid guards in the game,
Sure,
a 1st-round pick, and a 2nd-round pick. And I would say they looked like 5 parked cars, Cecil, but I don't want to be insulting parked cars. All right, I'm not talking about, they had a Caddy and a Lincoln and like a Chevy. No. Okay, they had a Chevette and a Yugo and a Pinto and a K car and a Gremlin.
Yeah.
They had basically 5 pieces of trash vehicles. 5 trash vehicles in front of C.J. Stroud on Sunday, and they couldn't block anybody. I've never seen the Texans offensive line play this poorly in a game, to the point where even the magic of C.J. Stroud could not save them. Cecil, what did you see from this line on Sunday? Because honestly, if we were not recording on a family-friendly program, I would have a lot of words that on radio would be FCC violations.
I'll be honest with you. It looked like confusion. They looked like they got out-physicaled. Now, I'll give credit to defensive coordinator from Green Bay. He was somebody that dialed it up. But there's multiple times where sometimes they're just bringing 4 guys, and you're confused and don't know who to block. There's too many times where they're bringing 5, and you can't handle the stunts. You can't handle the blitzes. You can't handle simply just looking the wrong way. You're not even knowing where to look. To me, that tells me the offensive coordinator is not doing a good job explaining what you're supposed to do against certain blitzes, right? It's too complicated for you. Dalton Schultz, he had a guy come off the edge on his left side. He didn't even look at him. The defensive back was lined up like he was about to blitz. He didn't line up like he was going to backpedal. He lined up from jump like he was about to blitz. We sent Stephon Diggs in motion to the right side. He still was lined up like he was about to blitz. Yet your eyes were inside. Not only did he get beat, so the McKinney came off the left side, not even knowing what you're doing, and then Schultz turns around like, what's going on? Like, it's too much confusion. So as Bobby Slowick has to make it simpler for the offensive line, the tackles, the guards, the tight ends, the receivers, the running backs. Nobody was in sync when it comes to pass protection. Nobody. Too many guys were flying free. Pat, when you're bringing 4 and you have 5 guys, possibly 6 because of a running back, and you can't block 4, I'm just confused. So all the blame, just being honest. Yes, it goes on the offensive line, but it goes on the entire offense. Because obviously the guys weren't pass blocking well, right? But it goes to the running back for not understanding what to do well. They get blamed too. And Bobby Slowick, he has to do better. You have to make it simpler for him. It shouldn't be looking one way and looking the other way. It was too many times I'm looking at Kenyon Green not knowing what to do. Drew Shrugs getting pushed into Kenyon Green, and then you got a free linebacker coming straight at CJ Stroud, and all he can do is just duck down in the middle of the game. Like I when you have spent so much money, $150 or $180 million on that offensive line, there's no excuses for this. There's no excuse. I'm sorry. It's frustrating to watch. And again, credit to the defensive coordinator at Green Bay, but there's no reason 4-man front, 5-man front, 5-man pressure, even 6-man pressure when you have the protection. Like, is there not hot routes? Is there not an outlet he can throw to? Like, that this should be schemed in the offense or adjusted as the game is going on, right? And it's not the first time we've seen this. We saw it week 1. And guess what? You play them again this upcoming Sunday. So it's frustrating to see when you spend so much money on the offensive line and you have so many weapons on the outside. And I'll be honest with you, I even say this, I'm not sure if it's being schemed up well enough in the route running to get guys open. I didn't see too many guys just getting open down the field. So I got to watch the all 22 to see the back end and really break down what the routes were run and if the guys were getting open. But you're not getting Tank Dell the ball enough, in my opinion. He needs more touches, but that's another subject. The offensive line needs to improve, and it's on the entire offense, starting with Bobby Slowick.
All right, there's a lot to unpack in everything that Cecil just said. There's a lot of really good points in there, and I want to kind of separate a few of them. One was, you mentioned about the miscommunications on the offensive line, guys not knowing who to block. And you mentioned this does go back to week 1, where the Colts would stunt and the Texans wouldn't know what to do. And then week 2, you saw the Bears. Those guys were standing up. They didn't even get down. They would stand up and just move around during the counts. They're moving around disguising what they're going to do. And here we are at week 7, and the Texans still have not figured out how to handle movement with the defensive linemen. Texans gave up nearly 50% pressure rate on Sunday to a team that blitzed barely 15% of the time. Oh, wow. 82%, almost 83% of the time, the Packers came with 4. It just felt like they were constantly blitzing because there was a free guy coming through all the time. Let me ask you about this, because you, as a former receiver, I think you have a very specific knowledge base and experience base of this. We have seen the Texans this year do a lot of these tightly grouped formations. Last year, they used to spread everybody out. This year, they got wide receivers real tight on the line. And one of the things that we're seeing is another team bringing their corners up, like they're going to play press man. But because they're so close to the line, they don't have to come inside if they're going to blitz. And we saw the Texans get burned on this a couple of times, where the inside corner, the guy who's supposed to have the inside receiver, is already so close to the line. He doesn't have to have a tell that he's going to blitz. As soon as they snap the ball, he gives the receiver a free release because he's coming in. And they had nobody to pick that guy up. why are they doing all these tightly bunched formations that are causing their offensive linemen not to know who to pick up and are allowing defenses to more easily disguise who their free rushers are going to be when they didn't do this a year ago?
Well, they get it in the bunches and the squeeze formations to put pressure and make the defensive backs think, right? You make the defensive backs think, okay, when they get in the squeeze formation, okay, we got to step back. They can't press the receivers now, right? Because they're in a tighter formation. Normally, defensive backs scoop back some, which gives open space for the quick game, for different small route combinations. You can get the ball out quick. It makes the defensive backs think. Different stuff going on. But what has happened, like you mentioned, instead of making the defensive backs think, they're like, hey, why not we just blitz off of the side of the bunch or blitz off the side that are closest to, say the ball's in the left hash. They're coming off that left hash and blitzing their safeties, their nickels, even the corner. Jair Alexander blitzed on a corner blitz yesterday from the short side of the field. They're like, hey, if you're not going to throw quick game and we're getting enough pressure bringing 4, right? If we're going to bring 4, just make them stunt, and then we can drop 7. We can bring pressure from somewhere that you haven't even seen before. So we can bring pressure for something you're not even expecting. A safety blitz, a corner blitz. Now, the offensive line can't handle up front. Now CJ looks, and as soon as he looks to his left side or his right side, whatever the short side is, now it's a DB right in your face who's just as agile as you that can make the play. They have to figure out a way either to have hot routes off of that, which can be built in, right? Or if you're going to get the ball out quickly, do more quick game. Find a way to get the ball out quickly. If they're bringing pressure, or if your offensive line can't handle any type of stunt or blitz or whatever they're doing up front, if you want to throw the football, you have to get it out quickly. If you get it out quickly, that will slow down the rush. Simple as that. Even with screens, it's the same thing I did with screens. But a quick game is an extension of the run game and a screen game. So if you can do that, you open things up for different to slow the blitzes and the stunts down. They can play more true. But it hasn't been working, like you said. So they got to figure out ways to maybe possibly spread guys out more. Maybe getting the traditional 2x2 set, the traditional 3x1 set. Now you can see the blitzes better. Now you can, the like you mentioned, the safeties or the inside corner or the nickel, they can't cheat. They have to respect the receivers for getting out wide, right? They have to respect the alignment. So that may be something to look into. But Bobby Slowick has to figure this out, not only for your quarterback's sake, but for your receiver's sake. Because I'm a former receiver. We got to get the ball, baby. We got to get the ball some type of way. But you're taking pressure off of the offensive line if you can get out quick.
So, in regards to receivers, Stephon Diggs had 5 catches on 7 targets. He had a 17-yard catch, and then his 4 other catches went for a total of 5 yards. Explain, if you can, because this is something that drove me nuts, is why are they not trying to let Stephon Diggs at least get a few yards down the field? Why is everything at the line of scrimmage and there's no, like, he's not in space. He's not, he's not one-on-one. He's in a bunch of defenders and has nowhere to go.
I'm going to be honest with you. I think it's one of few things. I think, one, he's possibly not a number 1 receiver anymore. I think they don't trust him when it comes to, can he get open versus one-on-one? Can him versus Jair Alexander, can he get open, right? Is he that same explosive guy of 2 years ago? I'm starting to see some of the talk of the Bills. Oh, he lost a step there. Is he creating separation like he used to? I haven't seen the All-22. I need to watch it, right? But that could be in the back of Bobby's mind. Number 2, he doesn't have time. So when you can't handle 4-man rush and the 4-man stunts and the TEs and the blitzes, then you don't have time. You don't trust your offensive line. So now you're like, okay, let's get our playmaker the ball, but get him the ball quickly and see if he can make moves and make guys miss, right? And then I'm just trying to figure out if that's the case, because I'll be honest with you, I think all year long he hasn't really gone down the field. It wasn't just this game. It's been consistent year round. You don't see him going down the field for many routes. The longest route you'll see him doing is an in-cutting route around 15 or an over route around 17 to 18 yards. You don't see him flying down the field. He's turning into a possession receiver, which is fine. But then why don't you let Tank be the guy that goes down the field, right? Why don't you let Tank be the guy to be the explosive top off the defense, right? So in my mind, it's like, okay, Nico was your big time guy going down the field, short post routes, short slant routes. So I'll do the same thing with Tank and Steph. Like it doesn't add up to me. So I'm a little confused with the play calling, but I'm also thinking, okay, do they view Diggs in a different light, similar to how Buffalo did? Like maybe he's not the guy that's going to go down the field and be all boom, boom, boom. He has to be the possession guy. Maybe he can't create separation. So I think we should keep a close eye on that from here on out, second half of the season. Like, okay, is this Diggs really getting open? You know, because of course he can make the tough catch. He can still do the intermediate stuff all day. But like you mentioned, they haven't even taken him down the field at all season long. Not even tried, right? So what's interesting, especially with Nico out, you expected, I expected, I'll speak to myself, him to step up and go a little longer with his routes, right? I wonder what his yards per route average is right now. And the same thing with Tank Dell. Like, you have to get him down the field. You got to get chunk yardage. Probably the biggest play yesterday in the passing game might have been Dalton Schultz on the over route or the in route, going down the field, right?
28-yard pass. It was their biggest pass. It was their only pass of over 20 yards.
Like, to me, I'm like, yo, if I got Tank, I'm taking shots. And I get it. Maybe it's a mixture of things. You don't trust Diggs there. He's not capable anymore. The timing of getting the ball out and having enough time, maybe the rush is too much, but figuring, and then I think it's a mix of just not that good of play calling by slow at getting your guys open and doing what they do well.
Now, when you had mentioned about, Nico being the number one, the type of routes that he runs, when Nico has those big games, you see him on, like you said, on those in routes, on those crossing routes, Nico gets over the middle, gets the ball in stride, and then gets a ton of yak. I can't recall them running anybody on that route yesterday.
Zero.
Not Steph, not Tank, not Hutch. I can't remember anybody running that route yesterday. And I don't understand why you would not run the route.
It's bread and butter for you. It's even off the RPO. You can really just fake it, make that backer come up, and then you're right behind the backer. So anybody can run it, right? Especially with Joe Mixon running the way he's running the ball. I mean, he was phenomenal yesterday. You know what I mean? You can say what you want about the guys in the pass protection. In the run game, they were better, right? And then even in the run game, Joe Mixon's making the offensive line look good. He's making guys miss. A guy hit him in the hole, he'll spin off and get 6 yards. Like, he's that special. So use that play action to help slow them backers down, slow that rush down, then go right behind where he left. It just makes sense to find ways to use the guys that are playing well, right? But if CJ is comfortable throwing that pass, why not throw that pass the exact same way? You don't need Nico to do it, even though he's exceptional at it. Use Stephon Diggs. That's right over the miss intermediate. Use Tank Dell. Find ways to hit the same areas. It just looks different with different receivers.
Last year when Nico didn't play, they used Noah Brown. And Noah Brown basically ran the same routes that Nico Collins ran. And Noah had his 2 biggest career days of his life.
Facts.
Why they do not run either Steph or Tank or even Xavier Hutchinson on those body routes, I don't understand. I don't understand why they don't really use play action. They don't use a lot of play action. They don't keep running backs in to protect the quarterback. Very, very, very rarely do you see them keep a running back in to block. And on a day where you're not able to block anybody, having your running back at least come in there and chip off the end, or be the guy standing there next to you when you line up, in the gun, and your running back is standing right there next to the quarterback because his job is to pick up whoever comes free.
Yeah.
Those guys like Jair Alexander coming off the edge, they're not coming free now. Right now they're running into Daria Gumbawale.
Yeah.
And instead of CJ having not even enough time to plant his back foot, he now has time to make a read, make a hot read, get rid of the football. The Texans do some things or don't do some things that to me seem like this is normal. This is what you would expect. These are the common sense things that you would do, and they don't seem to do them. And I'm not trying to say that I know more about offense than Bobby Slowick, because I don't, right? I don't. But I can look at things and see they are getting into a pattern of doing things that don't seem to be working and don't seem to make sense. And the things that we have learned over our entire lives in football of, hey, when this doesn't work, do this.
Yeah.
They're not doing those things.
Yeah. I think at times coaches and players too, they make the game more complicated than what it is. What do you do well? Right? What do you do well? And continue to do that. Whatever your receivers, your quarterback, your offensive line does well, do that. Just make it look different. Add motions, add shifts, add different formations. But the same consistent routes, the same consistent run plays, those should be it, just looking differently every single time, right? Like I think Slow did a good job switching up. Early on they were doing some inside zone with a 12 personnel. He had 2 tight ends in the game, right? So it was Dalton Schultz and Cade Stover. When they were in the game, they were running inside zone, outside zone, and they were getting yardage. Second half, he switched it up. He went 11 personnel, and he only had 1 tight end. They put a guy in motion. It was still inside zone, but to the defense, it looked different. They've been running inside zone well all game. Now you hit it, boom. It looks different, but it's the same play. So you're not confusing your guys. You're trying to confuse the defense, right? And I think at times, coaches and players, we make the game too hard. So if I'm Bobby, I'm breaking it down simple this week. How are we going to stop the pass? How are we going to stop the pass rush? How are we going to throw the ball down the field? What does Stephon Diggs do well? What does CJ like to throw? You know what? When it comes to pass protection, what does Juice and Tunsil and Shaq and Kenyon Green and Titus Howard, who tripped and failed by himself? Lord have mercy. I've never seen that. That was frustrating to watch. He stepped on
Dalton Schutz's foot.
Like, what are you doing? Anyways, what do they do well? How are they most comfortable picking up the blitz, right? What they're most comfortable doing, let's do that. Make a game plan simple. Run the football, play action off of that. Make the linebackers move, go behind the linebackers, make the game plan simple to get back in your rhythm. Because I tell you what, you lost to Minnesota. Seemed like a serious playoff contender. You lost to the Pack. You beat Buffalo, good. But you lost to the Packers, a serious playoff contender, possibly can come out the NFC. That's how good I think the Packers are, right? And you're not that far off. You lost by a last-second field goal. Even everything we're saying, you lost by a last-second field goal. But how many times, that's twice now, but how many times are you going to lose to these top-notch teams if you're a top-notch team? It's coming. December is coming where you got a Tua Miami, where you got Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City, and then you got the Baltimore Ravens, who look like, to me, the best team in the AFC. Not to mention, you got the Lions coming in a couple of weeks. Like, how many times are you going to make excuses for not beating good teams? You have to figure out how to do that. And I tell you what, it's week 7, and you're still struggling to pick up stunts and TEs and blitzes. Like, you have to figure this out on offense because your defense gave you a chance. Special teams came up with a turnover. Like, you're doing well in different areas, and it's not all bad on offense, but you have to figure it out to win those tough games against good opponents.
If you watch that game and you were fully invested in it, by the time you were done, man, you were probably exhausted and exasperated, and you needed some recovery. When you need recovery, you got to go to the Cherubundi. This little 8-ounce bottle is everything you need to recover. Right? It's natural products and ingredients. There's no added sugar, which means people like me can drink it. It's a natural anti-inflammatory. It reduces soreness. It increases your recovery. It's got naturally occurring melatonin in it, so it's going to help you sleep. It helps support your immunity. Right? Every NCAA football and basketball national champion since 2007 has this in their locker room. Every NFL team has this in their locker room, right? 66 of the 67 Power 4 conference football teams have this in their locker room. You should have it in your fridge. Cherubundi, it's available at Amazon, cherubundi.com, and at retailers like Kroger, right here in the greater Houston area, Cherubundi. And I can tell you it works because I've used it. My daughter uses it. You use it for 4 days straight, and you're going to see how well it works. Also, if you want to use it for the sleep, take it 90 minutes before you go to bed. 9 minutes before you go to bed, you get the sleep benefit just like that. And there's no limit to how many, like, oh, I had one this morning, I can't have one later. You don't have any of those issues, man. It's really good stuff. So get yourself some at Cherubundi. Cecil, we talked about the offensive line. We talked about some stuff with the receivers. The running game is very interesting to me because Joe Mixon continues to, as you said, make everybody else look good. He had 115 yards on 25 carries. He averaged 4.5 yards a carry. He scored twice. Joe Mixon was the offense. They couldn't stop the pass rush with their offensive linemen. They stopped the pass rush by giving the ball to Joe Mixon. And Joe was able to, on multiple occasions, make chicken salad out of chicken you-know-what. And then you look at how well the offensive line held up and that there were 11 tackles for loss. The Packers lived in the backfield. That's how many times Wilson had to make something out of nothing because, he's got to find holes that don't exist. He's got to spin off defenders who are in holes, and he somehow keeps doing it. I mean, Joe Mixon was the best player on offense on Sunday, and it wasn't close. But the fact that you've got 11 TFLs, I mean, Dameon Pierce got 2 carries. After having, the big touchdown run the week before, he got 2 carries. He had a 2-yard run and a nothing. Dare Ogunbowale had 1 carry. So it was pretty much all Joe Mixon. And he was either getting hit behind the line or he was finding ways to churn out yards. This team didn't run block well last year. When Joe Mixon is not in the game, it often looks like they're not run blocking well again. What we're seeing, are they inconsistent in their run game, but there are holes? Or is Joe Mixon truly on almost every carry here just being Superman?
No, Joe Mixon is really good. Joe Mixon's really good. And I'm going to give the offensive line credit here. I think they do a good job in the inside zone and outside zone. They are improving. You see the improvement from last year to this year, big time. But there's still improvement to go. There's moments where still they may overrun their block. They may miss a block. They may not understand I have to stay on this guy. I got to help the center here until I get to the second level, which is the linebacker. So there's still kinks to work out. So I'll say they're inconsistent. But you can do that when you have a Joe Mixon. Right? You can do that when you have a guy that's going to make the first guy miss almost every single time. And Joe does a good job of making sure the linebackers and the defensive line flow to the right or the left, and then he finds his cutback. Does a great job being patient. Some people are like, man, he's so upright. He does a great job understanding, okay, if I've sailed this outside zone here, I know exactly where I'm looking for my cutback lane. And he knows how to hit it and goes for it, right? Same thing with the inside zone. Inside zone, you're hitting that A gap, right? So he gets the ball, he's coming downhill. It's A gap, which is right next to the center, to the backside A gap, which is right next to the other side of the center, and then the backside B gap. And he understands where his cut down lanes are. Green Bay, what they did up front, as far as the defensive line, they were rolling to that outside zone side. Whatever side the line were running to, they were running with them, and he did a great job of seeing it. So I think the line is getting better at run blocking. I love Tunsil's attitude in the run game. I think the mindset is we're going to pound the ball, we're going to do it well, which I enjoy. Still some inconsistencies, but Joe makes up for the inconsistencies, how good he is playing. He is playing lights out right now, right? He is playing to the point where he breaks a 30, 40, 50-yard run, and he stays in the game. And he gets the ball again. Like, he is just coming along so well. He's confident in this scheme, man. I wish we had him last year. Oh, my gosh. But he's doing outstanding right now. So I would say it's a little bit of inconsistency, but Joe Mixon makes up for it all. Continue to work that running game, continue to hand him the ball, and I think that offensive line continue to get better at the outside and inside zone scheme.
All right, we're going to switch it up to the defense here in just a minute. First, we're going to tell you about our friends at Mellon Hats. You know what? Your hat game is important. Cecil will tell you hat game is important. I'm going to tell you hat game is important. You often see the both of us with hats on. You often see both of us with hats on. Mm-hmm. Today, we were both doing the whole work thing and, how to be all professional and whatnot. But your hat game is important. And chances are when you find a hat and you really like it, you wear it all the time. And when you wear that hat all the time, it gets sweaty, starts to smell, starts to get sweat stains on it. Hat starts breaking down. Man, you can't have that. You need a hat that's going to be durable and is going to be able to live through all of those things. And that's where Melon comes in, right? These bad boys, these aren't your regular hats, right? These are premium durable headwear that whether you're tailgating or you're playing golf or you're working or you're hustling, these things, they last 5 times longer than a regular everyday hat. They have natural antimicrobial properties. So they don't get that stink from the sweat. They don't get the sweat lines. You know, if you've got a hat that you wear a lot, right here, this is where you see those sweat marks start to turn yellow. It gets nasty. You know, right here, that's where you start to get those white salt lines from your head sweating you. They don't have these on these hats. These hats are built to withstand all of that. They're also made for the water. So if you're in the water, your hat will bounce back. If you need to wash your hat when it comes out of the washing machine, out of the dryer, it bounces back to its regular shape. So you're looking for a hat that can handle your lifestyle. Go to melon.com. That's MELIN.com. Melon.com. Order your hats from Melon. Put it to the test and see why these are the best, most durable hats that you're going to find on the market. Cecil, let's get to the defense because, you mentioned they had 2 takeaways. And Neville Hewitt and Jake Hansen, 2 guys who were asked to step up because Aziz Al-Shire and Henry Toto were not going to play due to injury. Those 2 guys combined for 16 tackles. A TFL, 2 PBUs, and an interception. And, I think overall, they played pretty well. For guys who are basically special teamers, to go against that offense, I thought those 2 guys played pretty well. Now, did they get beat up in the run game a little bit? Yeah, a little bit. They have a couple of big runs. But overall, I thought they played pretty solid football for guys who are not normally asked to play more than a handful of defensive snaps. And they played a lot of defensive snaps. You look at what those guys did on defense. Neville Hewitt played every single defensive snap.
Wow.
Jake Hansen played every single defensive snap.
Wow.
Yeah, they were out there the whole game, all 58 snaps, and I think overall they represented themselves pretty well.
They did their job. Like, they didn't get beat in a bad way as far as those 2 linebackers. They made plays when it came to you. Big turnover by Neville, being in the right spot at the right time. Great play by Petrie. Those guys did what they're supposed to. 5, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Pat, 5 starters on defense were out. Is that correct?
Yes, 5 starters.
5. And they kept you in the game. 5 backups, and they kept you in the game. That says a lot. I tell you what that says. The scheme is not too much for them. They understand their assignment. They understand they can do it at a high level, and they did their best. Were they perfect? No. But they understood it to play still at a good enough level to keep your team into the game, right? I think that's one thing Bobby, I'm going to continue to say it. Bobby's probably simple it down on offense so that you can get things going. Then, going back to Neville, he made plays in the run game. Did they get beat up a little bit? They did. Did they miss some plays a little bit? They did, but they're backups, they're career special teams guys, right? So for those guys that come in and make plays, that says a lot about the scheme. It was perfect for them, and you can trust them when you need them to. The defense did a fabulous job, in my opinion.
Now, D'Angelo Ross, he also played all 58 snaps.
Oh, okay. Did I say fabulous just now? I didn't mean to say fabulous.
And he had 8 tackles in this game. He also had 0 pass breakups. So every time he made a tackle, it's because a guy caught a football in front of him.
He was getting picked on, Pat. He was getting picked on. And you know what was interesting? We talked about like, now I'm maybe rambling here, but we talked about, I'm thinking about Romeo Doubs, right? And the routes that he caught against Ross, against Stingley, against those guys. He probably caught 2 out. I'm not sure how many catches he had. He had 2 out routes he caught, one first play of the game, and then one late in the second half. And then the rest of it, I guarantee you, the rest of his catches were slant routes. The rest of his catches were inside cutting routes. Simple, riding Jacobs, throwing it, then bap on, was it Ross or Stingley? And I'm just like, we should be doing that. Oh, we should be doing that. But Ross, you got to find some depth there. You got to find some depth.
Remember when Romeo Doubs was deactivated for contract detrimental to the team?
Yeah, 2 games ago. Yep.
Yeah, well, Romeo Doubs had 8 catches for 94 yards on Sunday.
And he had 2 touchdowns last week.
I would say that whatever it was that he was unhappy about, they worked it out.
They worked it out.
They worked it out. They figured it out because he had 10 targets. Nobody else had more than 6. He had 10 targets and 8 catches, and he ate. He ate all day long. He ate.
He did.
And look, that I understand. Kamari is a big loss, and you're trying to find. You're trying to find more guys who can give you something else. Here's, one of the things that, I was talking about on a radio show on Friday night with Sean Bajani on Area 45 on Sports Radio 610. So, you're down your 2 starting linebackers. Is it possible maybe we see Jalen Petrie, who kind of plays this hybrid position where sometimes he's a safety and sometimes he's a slot corner and sometimes he's a linebacker. Maybe we see him play a little closer to the line, and they'll activate Des King, and Des can play some of that slot corner because that's really what his best position is on defense. Would you like to know how many defensive snaps Desmond King played yesterday? Your first gut reaction is the right one.
None.
None. Not a single one.
That's crazy.
And I'm like, this is a guy who was really good for you last year, and it's been pretty good for you in the past. Yeah. I don't understand why Des can't get on the field. I don't know why he can't. I mean, this is a guy who was a good slot corner for you last year, and right now he can't get on the field. And D'Angelo Ross, who I'm not sure he was gonna get a PBU on anybody yesterday, played every single snap. And in fact, if you go to the D-backs, Eric Murray, D'Angelo Ross, Kalen Bullock, Derek Stingley, Jalen Petrie, those 5 guys played every snap. No other defensive back got a defensive snap. So they rolled their guys were basically their 5 starters. They played nickel the whole game, and they went with those 5 guys. Those guys never came off the field.
That's interesting.
Like Chris Boyd, MJ Stewart, Kedar Holman, they all played a lot of specials. They didn't get any defensive snaps.
I wonder why. Maybe it's a scheme fit. I think looking at just thinking about the game, I think Ross, the touchdown that Ross quote unquote gave up, looked like it was a cover 2 shell, right? Like it was a cover 2. Safety should have been over top. Probably was Bullock, I think, on that side, or maybe it was Murray.
It was Eric Murray, and Eric Murray bit on the under route, and that allowed the receiver to get free.
So like they probably should look at more guys in those roles, right? Just to see what you can do, because you can't be a guy out there that gives up however many. He had 8 tackles. He didn't break up a pass all day long, and you're giving up possible touchdowns or not communicating whether you're a safety or a corner. They probably should look at that depth of that position and figure out what they can do. Because right now, if I'm an offense coming in, even with Anthony Richardson, I'm gonna look to Ross's side. That's just what it is.
That was the Dontavian Wicks touchdown.
Yep.
And as you look into, you've got Anthony Richardson, and I guess there's a couple of schools of thought here, right? Number one, Anthony Richardson is not an accurate quarterback, but he's going to throw bombs. And if you let guys get behind you, they're going to catch bombs.
Yes.
Number 2 is Anthony Richardson played the entire game last week. So that means he'll be out of the game by halftime because he'll be broken again.
Here you go.
That train's just never late. And played 6 quarters. Okay, got to put him back in the shop now for like 5 weeks. And then he comes back out and he plays a half a game. All right, got to put him back in the shop now for like 5 weeks. He's not a Mack truck. He's a Rolls Royce. 10 minutes on the road, 1 hour in the shop. That's how it works. But look, they've got some guys who can get deep, and you got a quarterback who's got a big arm, and he's a guy who can he won't throw it very accurately, but he certainly can take off and run.
Yeah.
So there's some different things that they need to do, and look, that's a defense that they should be able to run on. They ran on them week 1. You would expect they'd be able to run on them again. But the injuries to the defense, there's so many of them. Mm-hmm. And I think that is definitely something to pay attention to, where, this is kind of like what we saw last year. It's not about how many injuries. It's how many injuries to the same position. When both your starting linebackers are out, when you're down a safety and a corner, and they're both starters, like it's injuries all to the same spots on the field. And those are the things where, look, eventually you're just pulling guys off the street. You just don't have enough bodies. Yeah. Now, on a 53-man roster, there's only so many bodies at one position. Right. So for them going into next week, you need more from your offensive line. You need more from the defensive side of the field in the secondary, the other side of Sting and Bullock. The guys on the other side, they've got to bring more to the table.
Yep.
And I think we will see more from Danico Autry this week. Danico Autry only played 28 snaps, which is a little bit less than 50% of the defensive snaps. And he, had a handful of snaps on specials, but it does seem like he was still trying to get his feet under him.
Yeah.
So I think we'll see more from Autry this week. Look, they like to rotate those guys. They don't seem to rotate the linebackers, and they don't rotate the defensive backs, but the D linemen, they rotate. And, Daniel Hunter and Will Anderson had the most snaps. Daniel Hunter had 45 snaps. Will Anderson and Tim Settle had 42. And then, it starts dropping 28, 27, 16. Barnett and Horton had 10. Kurt Heinisch had 11. Khalil Davis had 16. I feel like Khalil Davis played pretty well last week. And I feel like maybe he's a guy that maybe has earned a few more snaps, but I like to see him get a few more opportunities. But I think we'll see more from Danico Autry next week. And look, that can only help. He's a really good player. That can only help. Let's take a look at what the Texans have next week for the Indianapolis Colts at NRG. It's a noon kickoff. As of right now, and I say this because as of right now, your line is 6. Texans are favored by 6. Of course, Bet Online, the world's most trusted betting platform, your number one source for everything sports betting. The game starts there at Bet Online. Texans are 6-point favorites. I would tell you the Texans should win this game by double digits. They should. They should have beaten the Colts the last time by double digits.
Yeah.
It's going to be how many of the self-inflicted wounds do they have to deal with? If they're going to keep shooting themselves in the foot, be it penalties or defensive breakdowns or failures on the offensive line where they're just giving plays away, that's going to be a much tougher game. But they're better than the Colts, and I wouldn't be surprised if Joe Flacco is in this game by the third quarter.
I'm scared of Joe.
I'd be more scared of Joe than I am Anthony Richardson.
Yep, for sure.
For Anthony Richardson to beat the Texans have to have critical failures. For Joe Flacco to beat the Texans, he can make plays.
He can. Vet quarterback, understands the game. And I think the reason why, I think we played in the first game of the year. Texas played in the first game of the year this year, right?
Yep.
You were missing. I mean, you can't, if you just keep everybody in front of you, don't, because last time, if I remember correctly, there were guys running down the field, A.D. Mitchell and Alex Pierce.
Yes.
Just running down the field wide open, and he missed them, right? You can't have that. They got Josh Downs back. You got to keep the guys in front of you, make him beat you in the passing game, contain him in the pocket, and I think you'll be in good shape. But I tell you what, the Colts are 4-3 right now.
They are 4-3 by some miracle.
So
and the last game,
oof.
Anthony Richardson was 9 of 19 for 212 yards because he hit a 60-yard bomb to Alec Pierce. And he hit a 54-yard bomb to Ashton Doolin for touchdowns.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
They had 114 of his 212 yards on 2 touchdown passes.
2 plays. Yep. Couldn't give that up. Not this week.
Can't let guys just get behind you the way they did week 1.
No, you can't do it. Man, look, if they're 4-3, then, correct me if I'm wrong, you mess around, lose this game, you're tied for first place in the division.
Essentially, yes, because
5-3,
you'll have the same record. You'll have split the season series. And as of right now,
it's a big game.
The Texans would hold the advantage on division record.
Okay.
But there's still plenty of division games to be played.
See, this is a big game. You win it, you just clearly you get rid of the Colts. You automatically headed them with division record, and now you're 6-2. So makes sense.
And the Colts, who have had, rotating quarterbacks, have only scored 10 less points than the Houston Texans have through 7 games.
It's not a good thing.
So Texans need to get the offense in gear. In fact, the game against the Patriots, where they scored 41 points, is the only game this season the Texans are over 30.
Patriots game?
The Patriots game is the only game they're over 30. Otherwise, they have 29, 19, 7, 24, 23, and 22. 22-24 is not really a winning number. 28's a winning number. They've only hit 28 twice. So they've won a lot of close one-score games.
Yeah, they had to find ways to produce more on offense, man. And it starts up front. The offensive line has to do better in the pass protection. They have to be able to pick up, because we talked about it. Week 1, they were bringing blitzes. They were doing stunts. They have a good defensive line. They got a good linebacker core. You have to be able to handle the blitz. You have to be able to handle the guys up front, not even the blitz, the different stunts. Come on. Figure this out, fellas.
All right, Cecil, I'm going to ask you to put on your shrink hat here. I want you to get inside the head of Tank Dell.
Okay.
Tank, as you mentioned, look, they need to find ways to get him more involved. He needs to have more targets. He needs to be more involved in the offense. He had 4 targets, and he had 0 catches. One of those targets hit him dead in the hands in the end zone.
Oh, he made the same catch the week before.
Yeah, and that's it. This is a catch he always makes. He had another drop on the sideline, and then he had a play on the sideline late in the game that was never going to be a catch because the ball was thrown too far outside.
Oh, okay. Last drive.
What is it that you've seen, or have you seen anything in Tank that as you look at his season and his first game of the year, he has 3 catches for 40 yards. And then since then, it's been very inconsistent. He had a catch for -3 yards against the Bears. He was 5 for 62 against the Vikings, 4 for 38 against Buffalo, 7 for 57 with his first touchdown of the year a week ago against New England, and then a donut in Green Bay. Are you seeing anything in Tank? Does he look a little slower? Are his routes not as crisp? Or is this more of a he's not involved enough and maybe his focus is just waning a little bit? Which would be understandable in a young player.
Tank is not being set up for success right now. That's just what it is. If you look at the routes he ran last year, he ran deep out routes from a squeeze formation. He ran deep post routes. He was attacking the ball down the field, deep corner routes. They're not giving him those opportunities. I mean, how fast do we forget how good he was just a year ago as a rookie, right? The stuff that he did well last year is not complicated. Make him run those same routes, put them in those same situations for this year. He should be your guy taking the top off right now, especially with Nico out, right? He should be targeted. I loved how they put him at punt returner towards the end of the game yesterday. Those are his most exciting plays. When he's back there in space with the chance, with the ball in his hands, with the chance to make guys miss, to me, he should be the starting punt returner. If you're not going to use him in the offense as much, give him touches at punt returner. Like, those were exciting. That was some of the exciting plays in the game yesterday. Him just being back there making guys miss, 8 yard here, 10, 12 yard there. That's a first down, right? But that's a chance to get him going with the ball in his hands. Now use him on offense. But to me, it's just the play calling for him is just not there. Like, what does he do well? He runs routes well. Well, get him to run the routes he enjoys. Right? Get him to run the routes he likes to do, the short posts, the out routes, the deep out routes, the corners, the deep post route, the go routes. Like, it's hard for a cornerback to be able to check a guy that's that quick and that elusive also, but has the stick at the top of each and every route. His routes are dynamic. He didn't lose a step. He's not running good routes. He's just not getting targeted, and he's not being put in a situation to succeed, right? As a receiver, you rely on so many other factors and variables to have success, and right now he's not getting that from the people around him.
He's Cecil Shorts, former Houston Texans wide receiver, 6-year NFL veteran. I'm Patrick Creighton, host of Area 45 on SportsRadio 610, your flagship home for the Houston Texans. Make sure you like and subscribe to the Believe in Texans podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Always great to talk with you, Cecil. And look, there are certainly fixable things here from a game against a really good quality opponent on the road that, despite all the issues they still had multiple opportunities and a very strong chance to win that game on the road. Yep. And the self-inflicted wounds just ultimately prevented them from doing so. So still a lot of opportunity and a lot of football to play, still a lot of games left and a lot of time for them to get things figured out. But you'd like to see them get it figured out a little faster than later on. Appreciate all of you joining us today, and we'll be back later on in the week when we get to your preview of the Texans and the Colts later on in the week right here on the Believe in Texans podcast on the Believe Network. Until then, go Texans.